Hey au pairs, it's Edwina. So a few weeks ago I recorded a video where I told you guys that to be in France I was on a visa called a TAPIF visa, which basically means that I'm a teaching assistant in France teaching English. And so kind of to do an extension of that video, I wanted to show you guys what it is like to be a TAPIF assistant, kind of a day in the life, because it's probably the second easiest visa to get after the au pair visa, and for sure, I would have been interested in seeing a video like this just to see what other options were out there to extend my stay in France. Because as you know, I've been on so many visas before, but each time that I went into it, I kind of didn't really know what I was getting myself into. Especially with the TAPIF program, there are a lot of different gray areas and everyone's experience is so different. I don't regret it. I love being a teacher's assistant and I'm excited to show you guys what a day in my life is like. Let's go! So the first thing that I would obviously do is wake up, and I would wake up, my schedule changed every week because I worked in a collège, which is a middle school, and a lycée, but particularly I worked in a lycée pro, which was 50 minutes outside of Paris, and I lived 30 minutes out of Paris. So I had most of my classes in the morning, which I kind of preferred because then I could go to school, work, and then go into Paris in the evenings and like either see friends or like tutor English or things like that. So I spent a lot of time on the train, but I preferred to have my classes in the morning because I could kind of get it out of the way rather than going back and forth between Paris and school, which is just impossible. So yeah, I was living in a house that was a teacher's house. So this woman had just like had an empty nest and like wanted to live with someone who was younger. So that's also the situation kind of that I'm in this year. So I live in an apartment with this older woman, but particularly that was important for me, not only because the rent was cheap. She was a teacher in my school, so I got to, you know, converse about school life with her, which was really nice. I got rides to school sometimes as well, which was awesome. But it was particularly important for me not only to have cheap rent, but to have a French contact every single day, because a particular goal in my life is to get really, really good at French. Living with a French person is probably one of the best ways that you can get your French to the next level. And so if your school or teachers in your school offer you a place to live, like I find that most TAPIF assistants find their best accommodations this way, but it doesn't always work out that way. Some people have a really, really hard time finding accommodations. So like that's kind of my first warning about the program is you get some help, but if people in your school don't provide you accommodation, you're kind of out there on your own. And if you're in Paris trying to get an accommodation on the salary that is the TAPIF salary, it is really, really hard. So I'm really lucky that I fell into two good situations 2 years in a row. So my preparation actually starts probably 2 days before. Every teacher that you work with is different, but you have to prepare for every single class. So I'll send a text out to my teachers 2 days before because I'll know my schedule. Even though it changes every week, I'll get a new schedule every week, and then I knew obviously what classes to look forward to or that I was going into. So I would text those teachers and ask them what they were doing so that I could prepare. Sometimes I would have to prepare a whole lesson that would last an hour, and they would still be in the room because technically you're not supposed to work with more than 12 students at a time. But I really like teaching, so kind of a few weeks into it, my teachers gave me the independence to make my own lessons and kind of student teach in a way. Some TAPIF assistants don't get this opportunity or simply just don't want it, or kind of like are given it but then complain, and you always have your rectorat that you can complain to if you are doing something that you don't want to do. But technically we're not supposed to have more than 12 students alone at a time, and outside of that I'll just co-teach with someone, which you'll see later in the vlog. But anyway, my prep then would start 2 days before when I would text them and ask them what to do, and I would kind of set aside time to sit down, get my binder out, and write out my plans for everyone. And I would just have kind of a little, because every day it was changing, so it's not like I was like a real teacher and could default back on lessons. I had to be extremely adaptable to what they were teaching or what they wanted me to do or what holiday was coming up, like Thanksgiving, Martin Luther King Day, St. Patrick's Day. I did lessons all on those themes as well, so it really changed all the time and I had to be really adaptable, which is why writing everything out and being really organized, especially 2 days before, really helped me to be the best TAPIF assistant that I could be. Something that totally saved me during my TAPIF year was my USB key. I didn't realize just how helpful that would be, so I'm really glad that I brought it with me totally by chance. So if you're becoming a TAPIF assistant, definitely have 1 or 2 USB keys with you because you're always moving around, you're never in the same classroom, and so being able to plug that in, having my documents all on there was such a godsend. As I mentioned, the TAPIF salary isn't huge. It's probably comparable after rent. It's kind of comparable to the au pair salary. However, you have more time on your hands, so I'm able to teach on the side and give tutoring and all that stuff. So it's not as bad, I would say, but it's definitely, you know, I have to be frugal, and one of the ways that I have to be frugal is making every meal at home. So I would eat a lot of quinoa and a lot of salads and pack them and take them to school. So the night before school, I would make and prep my lunch and my snack and then eat with the teachers at school, which is another opportunity to learn French and just immerse myself in a French environment, because for those of you who are in Paris, it's obviously really hard to be in a big city and speak in French all the time because there's English everywhere all the time, and if you start speaking in accent sometimes people just know you're American or English speaking and will speak to you in English. So that was something that was frustrating for me. I'm really glad that I'm at a point where I can find these immersive French environments. And so packing lunch not only saves me money, but it also gives me the opportunity to speak French and be in the culture more. But it's just something you have to do. Like, even if I wasn't eating lunch at school, I would pack my meals for like dinner if I was planning to be in Paris and eat them on like a park bench and like whatever. It saved me money and it was pretty much the only way to survive. So you have to figure out ways to budget, and I'm pretty sure, like, I would say my au pair year totally helped me out with my TAPIF year because it made me a really strong budgeter, and so the things that I'm doing now like are not out of the ordinary for me. So in order to get to school, basically if this is Paris, this was my house, and then this was school. And the train that went from Paris to my house to school was the RERE. Didn't even know that existed before this job, and it only runs every half hour, which was kind of a buzzkill because if I missed a train then I would be late, and I cannot tell you the amount of mornings that I was running to the train station. But my job luckily covered half of my transportation card. Once I got to the train station at the town that my school was in, sometimes I would get a teacher to drive me to school, which was super nice because that meant I didn't have to take a bus to school, because it was like I would get on the train and then take a bus to school. But having the ride either from the woman that I lived with or from a teacher, like another teacher in the school from the train station, was just so helpful. What did you appreciate, I guess, the most about having an assistant with you in your classroom?
I mean, what I like is that you have a different way of doing things, and I appreciate that. I really like it because I think that it's an enriching experience for me, because I have learned things from you.
Oh, yeah. Really?
Yeah.
That's so sweet.
I mean, that's it. But yes, I have learned many things. I mean, you have a different approach. So yeah, I say it's enriching for me.
So then in my day I get to teach, which is awesome. I really liked last year because I really was a student teacher and I got to teach a different age and see what I liked and what I didn't like. I don't know, I feel like teaching really complements my personality. I'm really extroverted, I'm really theatrical, so it was kind of nice for me to have this stepping stone into teaching, and I can see that as an option now. I don't know if I want to be a teacher, nor do I don't know if I want to work in the United States as a teacher, because it's very different there, but at the same time I got to be in front of a class and I got to make lesson plans, and so that was super cool. As I mentioned before, you work with different teachers every single time. So yeah, then you get to actual teaching. I love being a TAPIF assistant because it gives you this stepping stone that eases you into teaching. It was so fun being able to see different teaching styles, and I felt like I was really getting a training throughout the year to be a TAPIF assistant. I know not everyone feels this way. Some people feel like they're thrown into it, have to teach their own lessons and aren't trained at all. But I kind of did a little bit of teaching in the past, so maybe I felt more prepared. But yeah, it was just like a really good opportunity to meet other teachers, to see what life is like, and then to also just make friends who were teachers who just are the coolest people. And I got to really see what I liked and what I didn't like. So like, I thought that I loved teaching high schoolers in the beginning, and then at the end of the year I kind of veered toward liking collegians more, like middle schoolers, because you could just do anything with 6th graders pretty much. They love all of your lesson plans. Whereas, like with my high school students, they just were like, okay, like, let's do something more interesting thing, kind of a thing. But those were also my high schoolers last year, and every year is different. Like, I'm in a high school and a middle school again this year, and it's a completely different story. Like, I love them both. So I was particularly filming this vlog on my very last day of teaching last year, and my teachers surprised me and had all my students make me cards and sing to me and say goodbye, and it like totally made me cry. I don't really cry out of sadness that often, but I will cry out of happiness, and I definitely cried that day. And I actually, this year, because I recorded this video last year, so this year I got to go back to the school and visit my students and my fellow teachers, which was so nice. It was just so nice to have spent 7 months with them, because the program lasts from October 1st to the end of April, May. And it was just so nice to be able to meet these people and to actually be able to call these people my friends at the end of the year. And I've kept contact with them, and you know, I really do consider them, you know, my little French teaching family here, which I wouldn't have gotten if I hadn't done this program. Oh, I'm so sad. It's my last day. So I just had my goodbye with one of Mayel's classes. This is Mayel. And her students, she made her students make me cards. She forced them to make me cards. And they sang to me. It was so sweet. Look at these. It's so sweet. I cried. I can't believe this is my last day. And for you, Mayel, I have a card that I wrote for you.
Thank you. Oh, it's a day with lots of surprises. Thank you. I'm going to read tonight. I don't want to cry in front of the camera.
Okay, so anyway, it's my last day, and I just wanted to ask well, first of all, you're from Guadeloupe.
Yes, I am.
And that's what I was just saying earlier with Mohammed, that sometimes the French teachers aren't always from France. They're from, well, Guadeloupe counts as France.
Yeah, we are. We are French department overseas, so we are French. We speak French and Creole.
Yeah, so she speaks 3 languages.
Yay!
Perfect English, French, and Creole. And what did you appreciate about having an assistant with you this year?
The first thing is really to discover the culture. For the kids, that's the most important thing. They can learn a lot about the USA for this year. Last time it was about England with Charmaine. So each year it's an assistant for a different country, so different culture, different knowledge for them. And it's a good opportunity to really speak English with someone who is from an English country. And for us teachers too, we are really lucky to have an assistant to speak English, because when you live in France, you don't speak English a lot.
C'est vrai. Mais aussi, moi aussi, j'étais appréciée parce que avec toi, je peux parler en français et tu m'as corrigé et tu avais beaucoup de patience avec moi, parce que de temps en temps en français, je suis pas tout à fait à l'aise, donc c'était une bonne occasion pour moi aussi.
Ah ben je suis ravie alors, parce que l'assistante elle est là pour nous aider en anglais, mais aussi pour apprendre le français. Ça va dans les deux sens. And that's why I really like this program, and I hope it will continue again, because it's really nice for everyone.
So I'll leave you with some advice. To really guarantee that you get into this program, you have to have like a B2 level of French. Mine is at the high B2 C1 level right now. It like vacillates. I can't even speak English. It like waves between those 2 stages. So I didn't know that I was going to get accepted, but I knew that my chances were higher because I had a really good French level. I had lived in France before, I had studied abroad, and so all of those help your application. And then you have to write an essay and have 2, I think, teacher recommendations from preferably French teachers that you've had. So that really helps. And in the application, you have to pick a region of France that you want to live in, which is, they're called like academies. And I wanted to be in Paris. I thought about being in Lyon, but I already had a base in Paris and wanted to come back. But I was nervous because they say that being in Paris is competitive for teaching assistants and you're not necessarily placed there. What I've learned is that that's not necessarily true. Being in Paris, heart of Paris, is really competitive, but you have 2 other academies that kind of count as one big academy that are in Paris as well. There's the Academy of Versailles, which is all on the west, all of the western suburbs, and there's Créteil, which is all of the eastern suburbs. And Créteil has this like rough reputation. It's really not, like Vincennes is in Créteil, and Vincennes is like a very posh area. There are different posh areas in this like academy, and I wasn't even in a posh area last year. I was in an area that was like rough, if you want to call it that. and I had like a great time. But because of this reputation, a lot of teachers don't ask to be in this academy, and therefore there are spots open here, and lots of student teachers or teachers assistants who are asked to be placed elsewhere are actually placed in Créteil anyway, even though they didn't think they would be able to be in Paris in the first place. If you were a teacher's assistant, give us some advice down below or tell us how your experience was, because like I said, everyone's is different, and I hope that you enjoyed this video and that it helped you try to gauge what a day in the life of a teaching assistant in France is really like. Okay, that's all for now. I'm gonna go eat breakfast. I hope you guys have a great day. Ciao!